International viewers, it's the top of the hour, and we are waiting for New York City Police Commissioner William Bratton and Mayor Bill de Blasio to speak at a news conference at a hospital in Brooklyn. That is where two uniformed police officers died this afternoon after a man walked up to their patrol car and shot them. It happened in the Bedford-Stuy neighborhood of Brooklyn. Witnesses say that a gunman approached the marked patrol car from behind and shot both police officers while they sat inside. Police have identified the suspect, who shot himself, we are told, in a subway station with police officers chasing after him. We've got our cameras live in New York City at the hospital where the New York mayor and the police commissioner are expected to speak shortly. Of course, we will carry that news conference live when it happens. Joining us, CNN law enforcement analyst Tom Fuentes, a former deputy FBI director, and CNN Money Tech correspondent Laurie Siegel. Let me start with you, Tom. We have heard, of course, the mayor plans to be there, but we already know, due to previous events in New York, there's friction going on between the police department and the mayor. How difficult does it make what is a already horrible situation?
Oh, it's going to be very ugly, as I was mentioning earlier, Martin. You have the Police Benevolent Association in New York City saying recently, before this event, that if a police officer gets killed in New York City, the mayor would not be welcome to attend the funeral. Now, that is about as ugly as it can get in terms of a relationship. Many police officers on the NYPD feel that the mayor threw them under the bus with his very public and open criticisms of the way the police do business. So they're very unhappy with the mayor already. And now you have this event today where it's starting to look more and more that these officers were killed on purpose because of all of the recent events.
And then you have a nation that has begun, in some minds, to question law enforcement, particularly after grand jury decisions not to indict officers over the deaths of African-American men who were being taken into custody. Laurie Siegel, I want to bring you in because as our tech expert, social media appears to be playing a role here.
Sure. One police source on the ground has said that they are definitely looking into to this guy's Facebook, to his Instagram, and oftentimes, especially when you're just asking why, a lot of times now you go online and these people leave behind a digital footprint. And what we're hearing is that there could potentially be some evidence scattered across the web on these pages that give us a little bit of insight into what this guy's motive was behind this.
And that evidence would seem to suggest, and I know we won't go into great detail, that the previous events, what I mean, Ferguson and the grand jury decisions, both in New York and there, way into that mindset.
Absolutely, and from covering the protests here in New York City recently, you can feel the tension. The tension is palpable. There are conversations that are getting started, and you know, this could potentially have something to do with it. We don't want to speculate too much, but I will say these police officers, law enforcement, they are going online right now, as all of us are, to try to find a little bit more information about this, to look for that motive and see if that was in fact at play.
How quickly can they lock that down? Because what if someone else wants to either pretend they are involved or change it?
Very quickly. I'll tell you something, as someone who, anytime something like this happens, as a tech reporter, you go online and try to look at this, these sites get taken down very quickly. That being said, nothing ever fully disappears on the web. There's always cached versions, so people can always kind of get an idea of these traces, of these digital clues that are left behind.
If it's true that the suspect, and it's been said, Tom, that he traveled from Baltimore, but Laurie, if that's true, and if there were postings on the internet, the natural thing to say is, why didn't somebody see this and somebody give a heads up?
You know, it depends, right? It depends on what exactly he was saying. But as we look again and as we look back at it, you could see where he posted his last picture, what the last thing he said was, how does that play into it? But you know, what responsibility do we have? And I guarantee you, and as someone who's doing my own digging right here, in between these segments, I will say, you look to see what the friends are commenting on when he posts, if this is in fact the guy, if he's posting certain things. So that's how you begin to wrap your head around this big picture.
Tom Fuentes, you were saying in your conversations with law enforcement that this was something feared, and I mean, this kind of an attack has been feared not just in New York, but elsewhere.
Oh, absolutely, all across the country. You know, you have protests in every major city, more than 100 cities over the past couple of weeks, which indicates that in those communities there's a difficult relationship between members of the community and the police. And so the police have been concerned that not the peaceful protesters, but people on the periphery might get encouraged or feel that, hey, it's open season, let's go kill the police. And as I said, the terminology in that Instagram, if it turns out to be true, saying put pigs in a blanket, you know, that's what I heard years ago when I was a uniformed police officer, and I thought that, you know, decades later we had moved beyond that.
We know that this is, of course, an incident that took place in New York City. The suspect, it's believed, traveled from Baltimore. Is there any federal involvement? Is there any way that federal law enforcement would become involved?
Well, the FBI certainly, at ATF with weapons tracking, and you know, so that they would get involved at the request of NYPD or to cover leads internationally. I mean, well, interstate and internationally. But really, I think at this point it will be the NYPD that will have the lead, and especially because it's their officers that have been killed.
We talked about the issues specifically to New York City and how things have really fallen apart, I guess, between the mayor and the police department. Just how serious is this rift?
I think it's very serious. From what I'm hearing, you know, when the head of the Police Benevolent Association says recently in the New York media that the mayor would not be welcome to attend an NYPD funeral should one be necessary. Well, now two are necessary. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the hours and days ahead between the police and the mayor.
And the President of the United States has talked about the issue of trust between law enforcement and the communities in which they serve. What is this likely to do to that level of trust?
I think a lot's going to depend on the response, especially in the community. You know, you had the one young lady that was on right away expressing concern that this shouldn't happen. This shouldn't happen in their neighborhood. The police didn't deserve to be killed. You know, as long as there's that kind of effort to find peace, to find a way to work this out among the, you know, the people that disagree over these issues, that could go a long way here.
And Laurie, we've talked about social media, just how it has been so much involved in what came out of Ferguson, in what came out of New York. This has been talked about, it has been protested across the country, and still being talked about now.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was covering the protests here in New York after Eric Garner, when this decision came out, you know, a lot of the protesters were using social media to meet up. These messages were being spread on Facebook. They were being spread on Twitter. There are hashtags. So, you know, obviously there's a whole movement happening. There's a whole conversation happening. And oftentimes it can go many, many ways. There's a conversation for everyone. If you have very, very strong feelings, there is a Facebook group for that. There are Twitter hashtags for that. So this will be something we all look at.
Surely there isn't a conversation where someone comes out and says, I support the actions of shooting two police officers.
Absolutely not. But, you know, I think, and what do I know, but I do think that sometimes when these types of things happen, people look online, they go down this rabbit hole, they find other supporters, they get so angry, and there are other people. It's not just your friends and, you know, in this physical world to tell you, but it's this whole online community who shares a certain opinion. And, you know, I think sometimes people can lose that ability to really make sense of things, to really come out and say, well, this is really how I feel, and this is how I feel, and let's have a conversation. Oftentimes, these online forums can go into a very, very dark place, too.
We should let you know that we are standing by waiting for a news conference that's going to be held by the New York City Police Department. In fact, the New York City Police Commissioner is expected to be there, as well as the mayor, which could produce some very interesting interaction between those two because of the friction that has been about for the past couple of weeks between the police department and the mayor's office. Tom, social media and the monitoring of it by law enforcement, this is a new age. I presume, local police departments, certainly on the federal level, they monitor a lot of conversation all the time.
Well, not as much as you think, Martin, because they just can't. They don't have the resources to track the tens of thousands of people that are on there, especially, you know, the issue like this one that's become a national debate. So the police really, what they rely on are people in the community or people that are aware of these postings to call the police and say, I think this person's crossing the line. I think this person may be intending violence or intending harm on one side or the other. And, you know, that's necessary in every type of investigation, from terrorism to any kind of crime that might occur. So I think that, you know, the notion that the police can track every one of these is just not out there. And again, if this person, if the shooter in this case, posted on Instagram what time was it posted, who saw it, who read it, and if he returned to his home area back in Brooklyn, where he's familiar with that, a lot of his friends or anybody else might not have been aware that he was even back in town. And
Right,
when you post, I'm going to put 2 pigs in a blanket, if that was true, allegedly, he just killed a woman in Baltimore. So, how would anybody know, in fact, or was it posted, I didn't see, that he was going to go from Baltimore to New York and kill NYPD officers?
And we are still working on sort of drawing that linkage right now. Lori Siegel is among those helping us to do that. Alexandra Field is at the hospital where this press conference is expected to get underway. What's the delay? Can you tell, Alexandra?
At this point, we can't tell, Martin. There's tremendous media presence here, obviously, and they've wanted to sort of carefully facilitate this setup here. So they've been bringing us in groups to this auditorium. It's possible that we could still be waiting for a few others. But we know that time is being taken right now for the NYPD, presumably, and others who are gathered here to meet with families. We understand families of both of the officers who were shot and killed have arrived at the hospital. So it makes some sense to think that they are meeting perhaps with some of the NYPD top brass. Presumably, we can't confirm it, but we know that top brass is here. We know that there are also just so many NYPD officers who are here to show support, to show solidarity, and the sight of it is just incredibly striking, Martin, and really quite heartbreaking. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced attending a press conference for the NYPD or anyone else. We got off the elevators here at Woodhull Medical Center where they're going to hold the press conference, and you couldn't even count the number of officers who were in the hallway, but frankly, you could hear a pin drop, just the most somber and silent tone through the hallways here. People trying to be respectful, people obviously grieving, and frankly quite shocked because we know that 35,000 officers in the NYPD put their lives on the line every day. We know that they do dangerous work and they expose themselves to dangerous situations, but this is the kind of situation that must truly strike fear in the heart of every officer and every officer's family member, not just in the city, but frankly across the country, because the details that we know here are so chilling. 2 officers sitting in a patrol car, having apparently had no confrontation whatsoever with this suspect when they were ambushed. This is something that so many people are going to take home tonight. It's truly chilling, and we are already seeing expressions and outpouring of support, not just from the community here in New York, not just from fellow NYPD officers, but from other police departments across the country. The Los Angeles Police Department apparently tweeting that their officers will wear those black armbands, mourning bands, in an expression of solidarity for their comrades here in New York. And again, Martin, we are just standing by. We are waiting to hear from the commissioner of the NYPD. We are waiting to hear from New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. We were told that this would start at 7 o'clock, but for whatever reason, they're going to take the time that they need, whether it be to comfort the family of the victims or to continue to gather information, because we should underscore the point.
Right.
They have not publicly confirmed the name of the suspect.
It is absolutely understandable that authorities would meet first with the families, and we will wait as long as it takes. And our hearts go out to the families of the fallen officers and of the police department. But I was just curious, has the mayor or the commissioner been seen on site there yet, or do we know that?
We have not personally seen the commissioner or the mayor. We are told that the mayor is on site. I can't confirm whether or not the commissioner is, but we are told that the mayor is here and has been here for some time now.
Okay, and the reason it's held at the hospital as opposed to, say, City Hall, the head of the police department, something like that?
No explicit reason has been given to us, Martin, at this point. It was a question, obviously, that we asked. We wondered, would they do this here? Would they do this at City Hall or at police headquarters? These 2 officers were brought here now. They were brought here in critical condition. They were pronounced dead here. This is naturally where their families would want to come to be right now. So I think that we can presume that authorities felt that it was appropriate to come here to be with the families and then to brief the press as soon as they could.
Mm-hmm. All right. Then, Alexander, please stand by. We'll wait for that news conference to begin. And again, if you are just joining us,